I was like, I can't do this anymore. That little pebble I threw in the pond had ripple effects that changed the entire dynamic of our family.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton, and welcome to Behind a Confident Smile, a safe space for women to reveal their truths they carry beneath their confident exteriors. Each episode features honest conversations about the struggles, challenges, and experiences that often remain hidden. In this episode, we're talking about Kiana's experiences with her three mothers, each leaving a lasting imprint through their love, lived experiences, and unhealed wounds. We will talk about the complexity of having multiple maternal influences, the heartbreak of loss, and the journey that followed. Joining me to discuss it all is Kiana Lampkins. Hey! I love your name. Yes, three mamas.
Three mamas.
Three mamas. So, first, let's dig into how did you come to, I have three mothers?
It was actually a difficult journey to get to that. I had a lot of shame about having three mothers. And so when people would ask me about my family dynamics, it was often me trying to explain, well, this is who this person is and this is who that person is. And it wasn't until I heard someone else say it that it kind of released some of that shame for me to just be like, I have three mothers. And that's my story.
Why shame around having three mothers?
You know, I think everyone wants to be normal. You want to have the fit and mold of an American family, a father and a mother and children. And it was my biological aunt who raised me, my dad's sister. And of course, I have my biological mother who birthed me. And then I have my bonus mom, my dad's wife. And so it was always, it felt like just such a complicated story to explain to people.
But in the world of complexities, our families are super complex.
They're very complex.
So let's talk about your mother that birthed you.
Yeah.
What would you say about, like in hindsight, what you've gleaned from your mother that birthed you?
Her wisdom. She is one of the most complex people I will ever know. She's an artist. She's very introspective and self-reflective, and most people would describe me as very self-aware. Well, that's my mom. And so in a lot of ways, I glean a lot of that from her, whether I care to connect that or not. But she is incredibly resilient in a lot of ways. The things that she's had to go through and walk through, many times alone, I have been able to capture, I think, a lot of her strength in my story.
And when you say your aunt that raised you, what happened between, like, being born, you know, from your mom's womb to your aunt raising you?
Yeah, I want to give honor to each of these women, because my story is because of their stories. And what I know is that my mother, who gave birth to me, had a very complicated relationship with my father, as do many of us in the Black community. We go through different things, traumatic things, and then we're working to figure out how to not pass that on to our children. And in the midst of them trying to figure out their relationship, my mother has now given birth to two children before me with my dad, and their relationship didn't get better just because she was pregnant with me. And so in her womb, I think I felt a lot of that turmoil of the relationship between her and my dad. And so when I was born, me and her did not get that mother bonding attachment and bond. And so after my last brother, well, I have two more, but after the next child was born, and there were some complications that caused our family to be torn apart, my aunt stepped in because she didn't want us to go into the foster system. And so she took in all of my dad's children.
Wow.
And so in that journey, she nurtured us, she mothered us. And so in the midst of that, she honored my mom, and they had a beautiful relationship. My mom still honors her to this day as my mother as well. There's no weirdness around that, but she raised us. And she continued to, even after my mother and my father kind of resolved some things and they went their separate ways, she continued to raise us.
As a child being raised by your mother, who is your aunt, how did that feel for you?
So because I didn't have that bond and connection as a baby, because I was 1 year old when I went to go live with my aunt, I never got that with my mom. I got it with my aunt. My mom actually said to me that she believes that God gifted me to be my aunt's daughter.
Oh.
Because she didn't have any children of her own. And so our bond was like this. I mean, it was Naomi and Ruth, where she went, I went. And to the point that when she passed away, when I was 15, I knew before they told me. I could feel that disconnect. And so all of the love, all of the connection, feeling seen, feeling heard, I received that from her.
Wow.
Yeah.
So powerful and palatable for your mother to acknowledge that. It makes me curious about how she feels or have felt to watch her daughter bond with another woman, right?
Yeah.
And what that possibly did for her heart. But also to know that you and your siblings didn't have to go into foster care.
Yeah. You know, I think if you were to ask her, I think it would be hard at first. I don't think it's ever easy watching someone else raise your children. I don't think it's ever easy, dealing with the complications of a difficult relationship and birthing. I mean, you carried that child. That is your baby. But I think that in conversations that we had over the years, and she began to see some of my deep wounds and my pain and my anger, I think her respect for her maybe expanded in a way that she saw that I needed my aunt, that I needed the tenderness and the nurturing that she was able to give me, that my mother just could not do that at that time.
So now, the third mother.
Yeah.
Who is she?
She is a fireball. We call her Mama Susie, okay? That is who she is. That's how all my friends have ever described her. And she met my dad, and they got married after my last brother was born, who's the baby. And she is a pastor's kid. She's a pastor's daughter. And in the midst of whatever it was that my parents were going through, my dad needed what her parents were giving, which was Christ. And in the midst of that, my dad, got right and all the things, and he married her. And together, they started to live out a very different life. But the impact on me, my family, they were not Christians. We believed in God, but we believed in the Old Testament. And so there's a lot of religion and legalism and just really trying to find God without going through the doorway of Jesus. And so it made growing up very hard in terms of Black people can be very prideful. And that's not, it's just kind of how we how we cope, I think, with trauma and with pain. We
can
put
see
on
that.
pride as a way to protect ourselves from people
To shield.
to shield. And so what we ended up doing is trying to figure out our identity separate from God. Right? And so at that time, we had so much hurt and pain in our culture because of race and the civil rights movement. And so my family took on becoming Hebrew Israelites, which in that facet, they didn't believe in Jesus Christ because that's the white man's religion. And so in our family, we just, we trying to study the books of the law and trying to study Hebrew. And it just became very heavy. That's the best way I can describe it. And so where my bonus mom comes in is as a pastor's daughter, as a Christian, she was one of the few that I had exposure to. And when we would go see my dad, they went to church every Sunday. So we had to go to church. And not that we weren't familiar with things of God, we just weren't familiar with Christian church. And so we would do a lot of Bible studies, a lot of studying. That's the best way I can describe it. But there at her church, there was like praise. There was testimony. There was song and worship. And every single Sunday that I would go, I would just be in tears. I'd be crying. And I'm like thinking maybe it's because I'm sinful or something's wrong with me. But I look back at that in hindsight and I know the Holy Spirit was meeting me there. And I know that God was imprinting on my heart to drawing me near and closer to him. And so I have that association because of her.
So you look at all three of your moms and you think about you and who you have become today, what would you say? Like, if you could put it in one sentence per mile, this is Kiana.
I am a nurturer because of my Mama Faye, my aunt. I am gentle and loving because of her. But I am also very wise and self-reflective and aware because of my mom. But I am deeply spiritual and hungry for the Lord because of my Mama Susie.
So when you think about the many layers and facets of how you put that so eloquently and simplistically, right?
I tried, girl.
Because that's a lot of history
to
unpack. That's a lot of wounds to heal or continue to heal. How has your three moms showed up in your mothering?
Ooh, girl. I have the most amazing gift from God and my son. And I'm going to try to explain this without crying. But I was deeply depressed in my pregnancy. It is a miracle from God that my son is who he is. Because I was grieving those mothers when I was pregnant. And I didn't have words for it. I didn't have a book for it. I didn't have language for it. But I remember thinking, I have to give birth to him, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't have my nurturer here. So although I had those connections with my Mama Susie and my Mama Patricia, I did not see them as the nurturers that she was. I had a lot of comparison. And so I had a lot of distorted lies in terms of who I could be and who I was because of that comparison. And so I wore that very heavy. And so when I gave birth to my son, it was really, I think, a gift of being able to breastfeed him, that we drew that connection. But I had to lay down who I thought I needed to be. I had to lay down who all of them were to figure out who am I to this child and who God's called me to be for him.
But how did you come to that, though? To say, I need to lay this down?
I think that's the messy story. That's the messy part of my story, because I didn't figure that out until I was knee deep into it. My son was about 2 years old when the postpartum depression was still like just cloaking over me. He was 2 and I still was just sad. And I wasn't excited because I was carrying all those expectations of like what a mother should be. I stayed home. I quit my job. I was a social worker, and I quit my job to stay home to be with him. And I kept thinking, why am I not happy doing this? Like, why do I hate this? Like, I want to be here. I want to be with him, but I'm not enjoying this. I'm not happy. And so I shared that with my husband at the time. And he wanted me to stay home because that's what we agreed on, was that I would stay home until he went to preschool. And I remember telling him, I don't think I can do this. I might not make it. That's how bad it was. I was so, and not that I was afraid for my son's life, but I was not connecting with him. I wasn't bonding with him. I just didn't want to be there. All that depression and anger that I had repressed from my past showed up in my mothering. So everything I thought I had healed, it showed up. And it was deciding to go back to work when he turned 2 that I think probably saved both of us. That was like the ripple effect of me coming out of inauthenticity, me coming out of masking, me coming out of pride, me coming out of faking it till I make it, right? And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that little pebble I threw in the pond had ripple effects that changed the entire dynamic of our family, and to the point now that we co-parent. We had to find a different way to do that. But me saying I cannot live this lie anymore changed everything.
I'm Wattice Gathings, inviting you to tune in to the next edition of Sisters Talking, where the sisters and I discuss mental health and emotional literacy.
I did not recognize it for what it was, which was depression. I just knew that I felt really, really bad.
Join the conversation Tuesday at 7 p.m. on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 or stream online at cantv.org. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
When you think about that Kiana, I envision you sitting on the couch like, I have this son
Yeah.
that I am not connecting with.
Yeah.
How did you live day to day? Like, what was going on up here?
Bianca, I don't know. Honestly, very angry.
And where did the anger come from?
Because I felt like religion sold me a lie.
Now let's unpack that.
Yeah, because it was like, get saved, get a husband, have some kids, have a career, life will be great. I did all of that and it was trash. It was horrible. I was more depressed than ever. I'm over-functioning, overworking. I'm serving with this smile and I'm shattered on the inside. This false self is constantly being watered, and I feel like I had to keep watering it. And so me saying, I don't enjoy being a stay-at-home wife and mom, shattered that. And so I had to gain the courage and the strength to say, I cannot do this.
Right.
And even up to the point of, like, consequently what ended up following was the divorce. It was now me saying, I'm going against everything I thought I would be doing. Because legalism would tell you, you got to stay in that, girl. You got to stay.
You make it work.
You figure it out. And so that was the place where God's grace met me. And I had never really fully understood what that was. But in the midst of my brokenness, he met me at what I would say was my well, that Hagar moment of, God, this is what I'm experiencing. What do I do? And he met me in that pain.
Now, when you say legalism, what does that mean?
Legalism, I love how someone put it. I want to quote her, but I always say her name wrong. Felicia Mason Minor, I think is how you say her name. But she says, legalism is man's shortcut to God, to holiness, to God's path to holiness. And so it's us coming up with these rules and these laws to figure out how to be good, as opposed to leaning into God's grace and his Holy Spirit leading us in what we need to shift in our lives. Him drawing us near and saying, hey, this is something in your heart right here. We got to deal with this. But what we do is say, wear skirts. We say, don't eat that. We say, make sure you go every Sunday. We come up with these shortcuts to holiness. And so one of my biggest shortcuts to holiness was stay home, be with my son, never get a divorce. You know, there were things that I came up with that to me meant I was righteous and I was good and I was doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Wow. So
Yeah.
let's tie this back into Three Mamas.
Yeah.
Were there, did your three mothers have wounds that were unhealed that you picked up on and ingested and later discovered this is why I may behave like this or think this way or show up in spaces in this way? And what were some of those behaviors or thoughts or traits?
So I'm a classic helper. I remember one time my dad asked me, like, why do you keep trying to fix and help and all these things? And I said, well, that's all I've ever seen. That's all I've ever known. My aunt who raised me, the family came to her as if she was Moses. I mean, in a lot of ways she was. She was the matriarch, I think, in our family, but she was always helping someone. And what I began to internalize is people will love you when you give to them. And for a child whose core need is to feel loved, seen, validated, I internalized, I gotta do. I got to stay busy. I got to help people. I got to come up with solutions. I got to problem solve. And so I began to overfunction. And I began to own that as my superpower, which was actually, I think, also a kryptonite for me. For my mom, she went through a lot of things. And it's difficult for me to talk about her wounds without talking about my wounds, because her woundedness made it difficult for her to be a nurturer to us, to me specifically. And so what I did with that was I would stuff down my anger of her not being able to give me what I felt like I needed. And so when I would push that down, that anger down, what comes up instead is depression. So what also came up for me was shame. And so I'm having depression, I'm having shame about my story, which is why I always struggle to explain that I have three mothers. And so our stories got really intertwined, but there's no language for it. It's just like bitterness and unforgiveness and anger and I don't want nothing to do with this person. And so it became this journey of like, how do we heal this? How do we like have conversations and move past this? And the way we healed it was actually like me expressing a lot of that anger on accident.
What do you mean? On accident?
On accident. I called her one time to invite her to my graduation for my master's program. And she said something like, well, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I was in Champaign at the time. And I just kind of flippantly was like, all right, whatever, because I was used to her disappointing me. And she called me back later that evening and was like, I sense that you're angry with me. And I want to apologize, but I want to know what I did to make you this angry with me. And it just ripped out of me. I remember I was standing in the kitchen of our little basement apartment in grad school, and it just like fell out of me. It wasn't like I had some script, some letter I wrote because my therapist told me to write. Like, it just literally fell out of me. And that was the most honest and authentic conversation I probably have ever had in my life. But it opened the door to healing.
And how did she respond or receive it?
With a lot of grace. Honestly, I don't know. I think it had to have been God who helped her. And she tells me all the time, thank you. And she told me, thank you for breaking the cycle of doing what we had not been able to do and telling our mothers how we honestly felt. And so it changed the complete fabric and dynamic of our relationship.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Kiana, if you could go back to the 1-year-old you and plant a seed in her, what would you plant in the 1-year-old Kiana, who is just learning to walk and say a couple of words? But what would you tell her?
I think the first thing that came to my mind was, don't believe the lie that you're not loved. That wound of abandonment, that wound of rejection, I've been fighting my whole life because I believed that lie. And so, my parents have a difficult past, but the truth is that I'm loved by all three of them. But most importantly, I'm loved by the one who implanted me in her womb. I mean, because he formed me, he shaped me, and I don't mean that in some like theologically like, whatever way that can sound. God truly loves you. And I don't think I could believe that even once I came to faith. I struggled to believe that lie. I struggled to believe the truth that I was loved because I was believing the lie that I wasn't.
As we wrap up our conversation, what is one thing you want to share with another woman who may be about to give birth and they have a complicated family dynamic? What would you want to say to her?
The gospel really is enough. Like, to allow that grace to come in, one, to help you to lay down that burden of, I gotta be perfect, I gotta strive to know exactly what to do and how to do. I think the gospel is a really beautiful picture of perfection is not required, like your sweater. Like, perfection is not required. And when you pick up grace, you're able to lay down striving. But grace don't make sense without Jesus. And that was my story. None of it made sense until I met him, until I had that encounter. And I think in the midst of my story, I was so focused on the striving and so focused on the perfection that I was missing all of the glimpses of grace that he wanted to give me to come out of that pain, to come out of that striving. And so for the mother who's trying to figure it out and they've got some really painful baggage, you can lay it down and just pick up grace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being you and for showing up. Kiana, I can't thank you enough for your testimony and the courage it took to share it. That's our time for this week. Thank you for making Behind the Confident Smile a part of your day. Let's stay connected on social media. Share your questions, comments, show ideas with me at Behind the Confident Smile Podcast on Instagram. Until next time, keep striving, keep smiling.